All right, welcome to the Hecht Report, live from the Nieux. I am here with Michael Hecht, the CEO of GNO Inc. We have a monthly discussion about what's new, what's next, or whatever we talk about. I don't know where it's going to go. Michael, welcome.
Hi, Tim. Thank you. All right,
Yeah.
now.
So what I would like to start off is on a little optimism roll. We just come off of an incredible month. The French Quarter Festival had a record year of
Yeah.
over 970,000 people attended the festival.
Beautiful.
Jazz Fest just ended, which is a beautiful
I
moment.
don't, I don't remember having a jazz fest with 2 weekends like this ever, right? We didn't get the hot weekend, we didn't get the rainy weekend. It was extraordinary.
Um, Back to business, Xavier and Oxner just formed a partnership, which is incredible. Why don't you talk about that? We had another exit. Wristbands sold
Yeah.
to AEG.
Yeah.
Conway Solomon has built a remarkable business. Just last week, Steve Gleason
Yeah.
partnered with Adobe and hosted, in our minds, the first ALS-driven AI art collection project that has not only shown the power of this technology, but once again shown the spirit of Steve Gleason.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'd like to start with, I read an article April 28th, and I think it was more of an editorial, where someone wrote about the chief of police, quote unquote, she's earned my respect.
Right.
So let's start with there, because I know whenever we talk about optimism, there's only, yeah, but. Let's start with the but.
Yep.
Let's talk about the chief of police. What do you see?
So the story of the police and it's public safety is a really nice one on a couple levels. One, just the numbers are telling a good story. Our overall violence rate has dropped by, depending on how you measure it, but basically roughly by half. By half since what it was in 2022. And that's across all four measures of violent crime. Our murder rate has dropped by double the national rate, so it's not just that everything is trending well, we're well ahead of the national trend. And then the story of the chief and her role in this is really nice because when in my highly unscientific research of talking to officers, including off business hours, I was in a car wreck a few weeks ago, and I was talking to the cop who came after, and I said, who came right on time. I said, "What do you think about the new police chief?" And the officer said, "Oh, she's a breath of fresh air." And I keep getting that, and I think that part of that, it's not just her experience and her professionalism, but two things. One is that she's got a literal open door policy. I've had a couple of officers say, we've never had a chief who's allowed people to come into his or her office as much. So there's just a real kind of sense of openness and transparency. But I think also part of it is that this police department has been bedeviled for a long time by feelings of favoritism and that people were given promotions or preferential treatment based on who they know or where they were from. Because Chief Kirkpatrick is so manifestly not from here, that actually allows people to relax around her because she clearly is not from the 7th Ward or the East. And that, I think, has given people a sense that there's not going to be an issue of nepotism. It's just we're going to run a professional department. So I give her a lot of credit. I give the whole team a lot of credit. And everybody who's been part of this dramatic improvement in public safety, including the NOLA Coalition.
Well, I had the same conversation with a police officer who we were with during the French Quarter Fest, who, after we met with the chief, he said, I love her. I mean, the people in the force.
So it's a similar, same kind of thing, right?
He said exactly what you said, that she's one of us, she cares about us, we're behind her, and we will do whatever it takes to get the job done. And I said, what's changed, and what he said is reinforced what you just said, is she's here to just do the job and care for the police. There's not a lot of inside stuff.
Right.
Which I'd like to ask, maybe, we're always scared of outsiders coming in.
Right.
You got to be from here. But there's something about this. If we go one step deeper, about how do you solve some of the current issues within our city? New people and new thinking is good.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have outside talent and outside energy, then you're in an entropic state, and you know how that ends,
Yep.
right? And also, I mean, it's a bit oxymoronic for New Orleans, which is a port city, that celebrates its gumbo of cultures, to say we don't want outsiders. It's literally what makes us what we are and why we're special. And I don't think that bringing in outsiders, except at the limit, risks diluting what makes this place special, because it's so baked into our DNA, baked into our culture. And also, there's a level of self-selection that goes on here. People that want Dallas are going to go to North Dallas. But so I think it's been really exciting. But I also want to say, it's not that we all don't have work to do, because even though, for example, the homicide rate has gone down significantly, it still is over 30% higher than it was in 2019. So we still have a long way to go to get down to the levels that we need to.
What can we do to make new people feel more welcome here? And you and I have been talking about this probably for 15 years, but the idea of creating an environment that is welcoming to talent within the city and getting them involved.
I just think things like New Society and affinity groups and social clubs and Mardi Gras crews and any of these things that give people a sense of social cohesion. I think that New Orleans is probably socially a much easier nut to crack than it was pre-Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Sure,
there certainly are still those old structures that probably nobody in this room is ever going to get into, except that now none of us actually probably care. Like, somebody said to me one time, Michael, doesn't it bother you that you could never be in Comus or something? And I was like, yeah, no. I was like, there are 99 things that I hate about myself, and Comus ain't one.
Tell
Has
me.
that ever been said in a sentence? But I mean it. So I think that the
But
biggest.
there's many other things going on here. It's not just one thing
no,
you got to be
I
in.
mean,
There's so many things going on.
The challenge in New Orleans right now, let me frame it to you like this. One of the fastest growing cities in America right now is Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And the reason is that people who are getting sick and tired of Atlanta because it's big and it's congested and it's boring are moving to Greenville for a higher quality of life. And I think a question we have to ask ourselves is, why is that not happening with people coming from or coming back from Houston, which you could say is analogous to Atlanta in a lot of ways, and coming to New Orleans? And I think the difference is we have to telegraph more the opportunities that are here, whether they're in technology, for example, the work that you were doing with Adobe and Steve Gleason, with Firefly, or what's happening in the energy transition, or what's happening in trade, or video games, or in hospitality, because right now New Orleans is one of the most beloved places on earth for good reason: the food, the music, the culture. Jazz Fest, what we just had.
Yep.
But when people are thinking about where to invest their capital or where to raise their family, it's not in that default list. And so we have to do better, and that's why the Super Bowl matters so much, at explaining to people that, no, this is actually a place where it is excellent to invest your company or your family's future. And then we will start getting the refugees from the coast or from the bigger, more congested cities coming to New Orleans for the arbitrage of a better quality of life and more opportunity.
All right, let's talk about that. There's a moment in time for the city over the next year where we're going to have global attention. For this conversation, let's call it Karma to Katrina.
Karma to Katrina.
So starting with Taylor Swift is coming in October of 24, which apparently is like another Super Bowl.
It's like 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah, so
I mean, it's
massive.
It's going to be used as the test run for the Super Bowl because you have 3 nights of Taylor.
So October will be Taylor Swift for 3 nights, but then a couple weeks later will be the Sugar Bowl.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later will be the Super Bowl. And then 2 weeks later will be Mardi Gras. And then Book Fest, Entrepreneur Week. And then a couple weeks later is French Quarter Fest. And a couple weeks later is Jazz Fest. And then August of 24 is the 20th anniversary of Katrina. So those 8 months.
Yep.
So tell me how you're thinking about that in terms of that narrative opportunity, and with the Super Bowl right in the middle of it. Tell me how you're thinking about that and what we need to be thinking about.
Well, I'll go back to the last Super Bowl, which was over a decade ago in 2013. And if you look at the period of time from when, so Steve Gleason blocked the punt on September 25th, 2006, right? And that started the comeback of the Saints and arguably of the city, right? Because the Saints are the metaphor, right? And then that was capped off the Super Bowl in 2010, right? End of the 2009 season. And then so we had that period of time, let's say from 2006 to when we hosted the Super Bowl. The Saints weren't in it, but we hosted it in 2013. And I think that was a period of time that we announced that New Orleans was back and it was better than ever. And to, paraphrasing what Mitch Landrieu said, it was a city is going to be the place it always should have been. We're going to be America's great lab for innovation. And so now
we had a narrative.
We had a narrative, and we had momentum because it was both a story and there was substance behind it, right? And I think that what's happened since then is to some degree a kind of inevitable atrophication of that energy, right? And then some stuff has been kind of own goals, or things because we haven't maintained the momentum, on our own. And this is because of leadership challenges or because we haven't done things right in the business or civic community. So now we have another bite at the apple with this year of extraordinary national and international attention. And so I think the question that we have to figure out is if the narrative in 2013 is New Orleans is back and it's better than ever. I'm just kind of saying that as one of the narratives.
We're back, yeah.
Yeah, we're back. It was a we're back narrative.
Resilient. We were survived.
Right.
We're survivors. Yep.
What's the narrative now? It can't be that we're back because it's been 20 years.
Yep.
What is going to be that thing that's going to both resonate with the public, but also be authentic, also be true? There are a few narratives that could be, around that. There's a narrative around authenticity. One of the reasons why Jazz Fest has record numbers is that it's one of the few places that you can go to in the world, no matter how wealthy you are, and still have to use a crappy porta pot, literally, right? Like, people love that stuff. They'll pay good money for it. They'll fly in their private jet, their G6, into the airport to go and, walk in the mud, right? It's an authenticity that's valuable. Yep. I think there's this really exciting narrative around energy because we have a chance to be the energy transition hub for North America and for the world. And so it's kind of a once and future king kind of narrative. There are things that we continue to do well, like education reform, since Katrina. There are things that are happening in the world of technology and in the world of neuroscience. We have our NeuroNOLA initiative, which converges with what you've been doing with Adobe, which is about how we can become the MD Anderson of neurodegenerative diseases. There's what's going on with Ochsner and Xavier, only the fifth black med school, HBCU-led med school in the country. That's the first one since Morehouse in '75. That's a big deal. So one of the things that I think we need to do is determine what's the bumper sticker. I don't think we know that yet. I think that that's critical.
So are we ready for this?
We're going to be ready.
That's not
We're
the question.
Gonna be ready.
That's not the question.
What's the question?
Are we ready now? Or do you feel like we are ready for the next year, or do we have a lot of work to do?
Both. I mean, I think that we're a little bit late in the game relative to where we were a decade ago, because we really started maybe 3 years before 2013.
Yep.
But I don't think it's too late because we've got a high degree of competency and cooperation in all the entities that are going to be involved over the next year. LSCD and Doug Thornton and the ASM team, the Sports Foundation, really good people working out of the city like Gilbert and Joe Threat, really good people at the state level like Secretary Donahue and Secretary Bourgeois at LED. So I'm feeling comfortable with our team, but there is a little bit of a 2-minute drill right now that we're in. That is true. So it's time, right? So, it's kind of like when you're landing in the airport, you're trying to get the last email done on your laptop, and the steward's like, "It's time, sir.
The plane's
sir,
leaving.
It's time." Yes. Put your laptop away.
So,
I cannot lie.
We had a session here with Mark Davis.
Yeah.
Who I'm going to talk a little bit about what he talked about, but until it's someone's job,
right,
nothing gets done.
Right.
We need to do this, we do that. How is all this coordinated?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to be a lot of people to come together. Whose job or who's leading all this?
There's a lot of coordination. It's the Sports Foundation who works on this for many, many years. Jay Cicero and his team. The city has a role. The state has a role. LSCD has a role. DDD, FQMD, Convention Center. It's a And the thing about the Super Bowl is that it's really not a game. It really is now a mini Olympics. It's a 5-day event that goes from Wednesday to Sunday and involves, you only have 70,000 people in the dome. You have hundreds of thousands, maybe 200,000 plus that come in through the city, not to mention about 200 million that watch.
Right.
So it's a thing.
And this is people's launching pads for their thing.
It's a thing, yeah. So it's a.
How does this get I'm just fascinated how this is going to work.
You're not going to get me there, Tim. I see what you're doing. It needs to be coordinated.
Yeah.
There's,
what would be?
It's not even subtle, dude. He's, God.
We could edit all this stuff out. The things that are critical in this, there's a narrative. So I see that coordination of a narrative. What else needs to be thought through as a city?
To me, there's really two things that are most critical with the Super Bowl and with the next year. And those are both risks and opportunities. Those are narrative and infrastructure. Those are the two things. Mm-hmm. So narrative we talked about. What is the takeaway from New Orleans? And you want it to be more than the first. Look, the main narrative that came out of the Sugar Bowl was a wardrobe malfunction on Bourbon Street. That was like the big story on ESPN. Can't let that happen.
Yeah.
That is a disastrous waste of opportunity. Then infrastructure, we need to use all these events as a forcing function to get the stuff that should have been done for 5 years and needs to get done for the next 10 years done. That's the Olympic opportunity, right? Is building the infrastructure, some of which is, basic stuff like road work, like striping the roads, and some of which is more enduring and kind of has greater sex appeal, like putting the lights on the Crescent City connection that we're doing right now. And so this is something I said to the governor, right when he got elected. I said, we have the Super Bowl coming up. Let's use it as a forcing function, right? So those are the two things, though. I think narrative and infrastructure. Those are both risks if you don't do it right, and opportunity costs if you do it right. But if you do it right, you get to cram a lot of work done in this kind of, emergent context that you wouldn't otherwise be able to motivate people to do. Plus, it's fun, right?
So if I'm a small business or an entrepreneur or such, what should I be thinking about?
Yeah.
Right
So
now?
that's a great point. There is a lot of intentionality, is the word, I guess, being done with the Sports Foundation and at the state level too, and at the city level for sure, for small and DBE procurement opportunities. They're trying to break up contracts into smaller bites that don't have big bonding requirements so that smaller vendors can do it. They're trying to speed up payment processes. We're helping them with that so that people will get cash flowed in 2 weeks instead of 2 years so they can actually take on these contracts. And so people who are interested in procurement opportunities, anything related to the Super Bowl, I can talk about the Super Bowl, should go to the Sports Foundation website. A person who works at the Sports Foundation named Chincy Mouton is in charge of that.
Okay.
And Kim Boyle with Phelps is actually the chair of that committee.
Mm-hmm. She's terrific.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And so there's a lot of focus being put on how do we make sure that the millions and millions that are being spent go to New Orleans companies. That's not just being given lip service. People really want it to happen. So I'd encourage people to reach out.
So after all of this, after Katrina, and we go through all this, what would you like to see? And what would you hope we would be saying? The Hecht report, the 8th Hecht report, August of 2025, probably be the 20th one, whatever. But
right.
What do we hope to be saying we accomplish, and what's the narrative you'd like to see going forward?
I think as a comparable, you would like to see what the Olympics did for Salt Lake, a place that is appreciated in a much broader and higher way than it was previously. So that's the narrative part, and then infrastructure. You can think about, for example, the light rail infrastructure that was put into downtown Salt Lake that now is being used so much today. So you'd like to see not just like a good feeling about the event and the year, but an echo that there's a long tail that moves on. To the specifics, I really think it's what we need to figure out, Tim, is what do we want the brand to be for New Orleans going forward? There's a member of our team who thinks that the brand should be the once and future. He thinks that that's kind of a clever way. And I get that. I just think it's a little bit too general, a little
Yep.
bit too abstract, right? But I do think it has to be something about a place that, more than almost any other American city, is rooted in tradition and culture and history in a very explicit way, is also the place that's going to be defining the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of why I like energy, because in energy we can tell a story about the past, whether it's oil and gas here, or even that the Higgins boat, which saved the free world, was designed by Andrew Higgins, who was an oil and gas explorer. But now we're actually have the technologies in wind and solar and bio that are defining the future of a low carbon energy portfolio. We have to think about how we take that idea and make it the general tagline. I'm not sure what that is yet, but we should offer a cash prize for anybody who can do it, or maybe like, I don't know, a free membership of New Society. I think that'd be a good idea.
Well, absolutely. That is a good one. I'd love to have a contest or people thinking about it.
Well, let's do that. I like that one.
When we had the Adobe team was in town for the Gleason event, and they filmed for 4 days, and in talking with them, they said they realized throughout all this, Michelle is remarkable, Steve is remarkable, everybody they met's remarkable, but in addition to the other character was New Orleans.
Yeah.
They realized that New Orleans was a character in this story. And they said something which we've been talking about, which I think is an interesting line, that New Orleans unlocks human creativity.
Yeah.
Here's a city that when you come, it forces people to imagine new things or do incredible things. So here's a city that unlocks human creativity.
Yeah.
And that night with Steve, it really sort of was a kickoff to that, where here's Steve using advanced AI programming to basically continue his art journey he did before. So I know there's something around, as we think about how, is this a city that unlocks human creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something around that. I mean, I always say that New Orleans is the most human city in America.
Yeah.
Really celebrates and exemplifies all the best and in some ways all the worst. But I think something along those lines is that there is, it does draw out that right side of the brain kind of stuff. So let's think about that. Let's think about kind of what that, you're very good at this. New Society is very good at this. Let's think about what that tagline is.
Why don't we have a little contest?
I like that.
We'll do that.
You like a little contest, don't you, Tim?
I always like contests.
You like a little.
I'd like to end it with, I mentioned our meeting with Mark Davis.
Yeah.
We have, this place is meant to be optimism and forward thinking, and we try to encourage people to really think out of the box. And so Mark, as you know, is a professor at Tulane University, is very deeply involved in the water plan, living with water. And so we asked Mark, 50 years from now, where's New Orleans? Let's take off the optimistic hat, just the truth. Where does he think New Orleans will be 50 years from now? Guess how many people he thought were going to be in New Orleans 50 years from now?
Mark's a pessimist, so I would say he probably said under 100,000.
850,000.
He said 850,000. Oh, wow.
So
okay.
He goes, we said, oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Okay.
And he goes, there's 3 reasons. One is people forget New Orleans is one of the most important cities to this country. Safety, to our strategic opportunities. So this city is important.
Right.
So as the water rises around the country and other cities are going to be inundated, this city's critical. Secondarily, as you know.
And we are on high ground.
Secondarily, we just spent $14 billion on new levees, which other cities won't be able to do that. And thirdly, but back to what you just said, the culture.
Yeah.
People want to live here. So end it with that. In terms of the narrative is not just a short-term narrative. 50 years from now, is there a case that this city is going to be a place where people are going to flock to because of safety and the culture?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, because the authenticity has a real value to it, and I think Mark is right about that. But I think the other point is that, which he kind of got at, I think, is that resilience is not how you come back from a disaster. Resilience is how you prevent the disaster from happening. The new flood wall is resilience. Resilience is not the Cajun Navy. It's not us coming back and rebuilding. That's incredibly laudable behavior. But resilience, the way we should think about it, is what General Honore said. It's being on the left side of the curve.
Yep.
It's doing things like our wall, like the Dutch levy system, like smart building codes, right? That prevent the disaster from happening in the first place. Weather is going to happen, right? The real problem is not the weather. The real problem is how we have adapted to living with it. Mm-hmm. And if we are smart about that, we certainly have the ability, the technology, to live with the weather, whatever it brings. We just have to have the political will to make it happen. And I do agree that New Orleans is an essential city, and it will continue to change and transmute. But I see it figuring out a way to survive and thrive because it's so essential at a economic, political, and social and cultural level. I agree with that.
As we always come to the conclusion, it's about leadership.
It's about leadership, but leadership is a collective responsibility.
So, as I think in my newsletter, I called you the czar of GSD, the czar of get shit done. You ready? You ready for the next year?
I don't want to get sued by Tara, but
we got hats. We got hats.
But as Eric B would say, ain't nothing to it but to do it.
All right, Michael. Thank you very much. This is the Hecht Report. We've been talking with Michael Hecht, this CEO of G&O Inc.
I want like Between Two Ferns music to come on right now, where they like talk people off. Does it? Okay, good. Will you please put on a post? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, sir.